3, 2.
Hey everyone! Hey everyone! Well, hey everyone! How are you doing? Welcome back to the Three Strangers podcast. I'm your host Ryan.
I'm your host.
I'm Nick.
I'm Nick.
That's Bill. Oops, I
Oh
did.
no, I'm Bill.
We like to watch horror movies together.
Hey everyone, before you start this podcast episode on Exhuma, Nick and I just wanted to let you know that it's been a little bit of a rough recording time for us. As you could see, Bill is not currently chilling with us right now. He has work, but he will be in the next episode, which is going to be the movie Companion, which we are very excited about. But we still wanted to release something, and we had a movie in the chamber to release if something ever happened. In the context of the episode, some things may not make sense. It was just coming out after a few things that we previously recorded during the summer. So just kind of, you can ignore those parts of it and really focus in our conversation of Exhuma. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I think Exhuma was a big surprise to me, and I think we had some really good conversation about it. Um, I I feel like I learned a lot just culturally from Exhuma that I was not prepared for. So it was cool. It was a really cool learning experience as we were discovering more foreign horror. Um, because I think you found Exhuma and suggested it to Bill and I. So yeah, I was excited to talk about it, and I'm excited to hear what people think about it.
Yeah, and if you guys have any other suggestions of foreign horror movies that maybe we've never seen or that you would be interested in us talking about it, please let us know in the comments. But I hope you enjoy the episode.
Yeah, yeah. Enjoy Exhuma.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Three Strangers podcast. I am your host, Ryan.
I'm Nick.
Bill here.
And we are here today to teach you about exhuming a body and relocating it.
Wait a second.
Wait a
A word?
minute.
Is exhuming a word?
Exhuming.
Exhuming.
Definitely not.
You never heard of exhumation? Exhumation?
Is it literally a word?
Yeah.
Well,
Oh
wait.
man.
Like
Oh
like
man.
you've never heard to exhume something?
No.
What?
Man, we
Dude,
all
it's
went to the
not.
same college too.
I was gonna say. I was like, oh cool.
Binghamton.
So I was like, literally, oh, cool, Exhuma. It's a play on exhumation, and I was
Yeah.
like, Nick was just like, oh, like what?
And I was thinking
That's
in my
pretty good.
ignorant self, oh, Exhuma, that must be some Korean thing.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that? Yeah. Okay.
Nick read the title, was like, what is this fake word that So we're going to be talking about Exhuma today. The literal translation of the title is exhuming and relocation of a grave.
Really?
Mm,
Very self-explanatory of a
yeah, if you
title.
know it. If you know the word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So before we start, thank you to Skippy for editing all of our stuff, creating great music. Check him out. He is awesome. All right. So Exhuma, what a thrilling movie. I
Yeah.
I saw it on Shudder. It was like at the top as suggested, and I was hanging out with my friend Tim. Shout out Tim, and
Shout out to him.
we were trying to find something, and we were like, "This looks interesting. Why don't we watch this one?" Like, sure, why not? And we were enthralled for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
I
Mhm.
I gotta tell you, I didn't even think to ask you where you watched it on. Yeah, I may have not paid to see it. I may have
Wow.
gone through certain unsavory channels to be able to watch it.
Okay.
It's called Reddit.com. And somebody
But he
had
had
a
a
real
sneaky
actually
link.
sneaky link. Somebody had a very much a sneaky link. I'll say the subtitles seemed to be synced up very well, but if they weren't, I guess we watched a very different movie. But it
Yeah.
seemed good. It seemed good. Yeah, I definitely don't have any questions about them. So
I watched it on Prime subbed. I switched over to dubbed halfway through and could not do it because it
Oh,
was awful.
it was a really
It
bad dub
was
job.
it was bad dubbing. It was bad voice acting with the dub. But because I had dub and subtitles on at the same time, and the
Ugh.
subtitles were subbing from Korean. So
Oh,
it was like I was it was like, oh, that was artsy. Oh, that didn't sound art. That wasn't, or that was
Can't.
metaphorical. Oh, that was blunt. Like it was so just yeah.
yeah. I'm
Um
not the biggest fan of dubbed. The only
mm,
time that I kind of accept it is for like the Italian giallo movies, where that was the style that they did. Like that was
Mm,
specifically a thing that they would do for the movie.
yeah.
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 I would say that yeah, the one thing that always upsets me, and, like it did happen with Exhuma, like where like I was like, okay, like like I'd like to like look at like somewhere like maybe like like one of my cats is like doing something weird, or like I'm like I just want to check my phone really quick. I'm like, oh fuck, like I can't take my
Yeah.
eyes away from the screen.
Yeah.
Like I have to know what's
Mm.
going on,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
requires so much attention, which is fine. I mean, we are luckily we can
Should
still pay attention to a screen for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
Well, I had another video going on in the background and another, podcast rolling. So I hope that's okay. It's like
oh
it
yeah,
gets
yeah, yeah.
an ADHD brain
Oh
was
yeah.
no, I was
Mm.
kidding. No, it was gripping enough to give me my full attention, but holy crap, sometimes you just gotta check, like if it's not doing that, you really gotta check the runtime sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I think it's a pretty tight 2 hours and 15. It is a long movie, and I think you
Yeah.
could probably cut about 5 minutes of it, 5, 10 minutes of it, but even then, I wasn't like, "Okay, this needs to end."
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt like a movie split. I mean, well, it was a movie split into chapters. I believe it was six chapters.
Mhm.
Um, and it seemed like it almost had two endings. I don't know about you guys. It seemed
Yes.
like a two-ending kind of movie, an ending halfway through at the climax, and then it was a false climax, which was interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's shaped really well.
That really took me by surprise because I was like, "Wait a minute." I'm like, "Okay, so the thing that they were supposed to resolve, like, is resolved?" And then, like, I looked at the thing, I'm like, "It was an hour. It's been an hour." Like, that's it.
Yeah,
Like, what are they gonna do for, like, the other hour and change of this movie? And, of course, that's ends up being the whole more or less the actual plot of the movie, I would
yeah.
argue.
Yeah.
Um which is very interesting. I'll be honest, I didn't think the chapters did much other than delineate that we were going from one idea to another.
Mm.
Like there, it's
Mm.
like, okay, we're gonna end this, sequence and like move on to like another sequence. I didn't feel that they were especially important storytelling wise. I'll be real.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I agree with that. I mean, I don't think they're necessary. It's definitely an artistic choice that they decided to do that,
Mhm.
and it could be something like, for American audiences or other audiences that don't speak Korean, like, this will be our way to delineate, "Okay, this was this idea, now we're moving on to this."
Mhm.
Mm,
But
it's
yeah, so
interesting.
Exhuma. Exhuma is on Shudder for those who want to watch it, or you could go to the sneaky link on Reddit. Uh, to put it very bluntly, it's about the process of exhuming a grave that they believe there's some sort of like curse that's afflicting a family of that's related to this specific grave that they're going to.
Mhm.
That simple, and then the plot just kind of divulges from there into something bigger and bigger that you don't really realize at first until, like you said, that first false ending happens, and you're like, "Wait, but
Yeah,
this never was resolved, and this never was resolved," and it goes
yeah,
right into it.
yeah. It really does build, and I think that's what it did. It did a good job, and I will be honest, because of that slow build, it didn't feel like to me a horror movie until chapter three, until like 40 minutes in, and then things start coming together, and I think they successfully um they build the mystery to, with no irony. There is no like the audience knows and they don't know. You discover as the characters are discovering in a way that's not predictable.
I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just want to, I'll let you finish your thought, but yeah, I think that was crazy. Good.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was a nice building and scaling of horror that I didn't expect. I really was caught off guard because the first half hour, I almost wasn't as interested because I was like, I feel like I'm almost like watching a show about exhuming a grave, and then yeah, I think it just scales really nicely from there.
Yeah,
Something that
I
really
agree.
something that really impressed me about the movie, that they stuck with, thankfully, throughout the entire thing, is that, like, obviously we meet all these people that have various, spiritual specialties, I guess, for lack of a better term. Like something like that, right? That all has to do with this process of exhumation, this process of, like, obviously somebody's an expert in finding the grave, somebody's an expert in, actually exhuming it, somebody's an expert in, like, spirit tuning, like, and sort of understanding, like, what the spirit needs. Um, the it's all played very earnestly. Like, it's almost like a procedural at times. Like, it's not even like they're, like, stopping to question, like, is the spirit world real? It's like, no, 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 like, it is. Like, it is. Like, for the purposes of Exhuma, like, it's like they're like, oh yeah, that's a given. You know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, you're right. No questions. No question asked. These are shamans, and this is what they do.
right. And ghosts are real, and sometimes they're pissed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
it's like, and they engage in various, like, practices that are consistent, and, like, we see them do it's very interesting. It's interesting from a world building standpoint, I would say. So
Mhm.
Yeah, and there's a lot of historical context that we'll get into more specific uh, things as we go on with it, just
Yeah.
because there's a lot of spoilers to that
yes.
historical
Mm,
context. But even like we said, how they have like some of these ceremonies that we see throughout it, like there's a historical context to all of this. There's a reason. This isn't like something fake that they've made up just for specifically this movie.
Mhm.
So
yes.
I think it's time we get into some spoilers, but I'm just gonna say I 100% recommend this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Yeah. Recommend it. It's interesting because it makes me think about what else I'm missing out in South Korean cinema. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
whenever like, maybe I'm very spoiled with it, but I feel like, obviously Parasite was a big deal,
Yeah.
Mhm.
just
Right.
in the West.
Yeah.
Everything that Bong Joon-ho has done, before since has been very appreciated. I don't know if you guys have seen Burning with Steven Yeun. Okay.
Mm-mm.
Please seek that out. It's not a horror movie, but it's amazing. It feels like they're in a real renaissance right now, and it's nice to see that horror is keeping up with that there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, and I want to recommend because you brought up like Parasite, the director of Parasite. If you've never seen Memories of Murder,
Oh,
that
I've not.
you need to seek that out. It is by that director. It is based on a
Mhm.
true it's based around the serial killer that was in the 80s in South Korea. And same thing, a lot of historical context that I ended up learning throughout the movie. And like, I'm just going to flat say it's probably one of the best movies I've ever watched.
Wow.
Yeah, it is amazing.
There's
Wow.
a
Cool.
there's a Bong Joon-ho movie I want to seek out. I don't know what it's called, but it was described to me as a party, as E.T. but fucked up. So I want to seek out that one. I know that immediately rings a bell for you, Ryan, but it's like
I was going to
it's
say
like
at first is a host, but
it, I don't know. I apparently there is an alien, and apparently they do like a dissection on it, and it's like messed up. It's like if ET, like when they're gonna dissect ET, it's like if they actually did that. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Which they should have. No.
which they probably should. I'm a huge ET hater. Don't even get me on that. But I
Hmm.
will say, yeah, we can talk about that another day. But yeah, do you want
All
to
right,
get
so
into it?
we are full on spoilers for
Mhm.
Exhuma.
All
Fuck
right.
Japan. No, I'm kidding.
Oh wow! Just get right into it.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll
Yeah,
explain
let's
why when we get
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a hard stop. That's a hard stop.
there. All right, so Exhuma. Uh, I'm sorry for names that I butcher with this. Let's just
Yeah.
get that out of the
I would
way
do I would do no
right
Mhm.
better,
now.
friend. So
All right, so renowned Korean shaman Hwarim and her protege Bongil are enlisted by a wealthy real estate developer Korean American family to identify the mysterious illness of the family's newborn son. Hwarim uncovers the curse to be a graves call, a vengeful ancestor spirit haunting them. So we kind of get thrown right into this movie. They're on the plane already, going to
Yeah.
Los Angeles,
hmm
and
And we
we kind
immediately,
of we're
well,
kind of
yeah,
just thrown right into it.
yeah, immediately, and we also get the sense immediately that there is going to be this kind of identity thing, because one of the first lines of Hwarim is, "Oh, I'm Korean," and it's interesting because she doesn't say I'm Korean, not Japanese, or I'm Korean, not whatever. Maybe perhaps they were speaking to her in Mandarin. Um, you you kind of get the sense of, oh, okay, there's some weird tension there, and what I thought was going to be a more prevalent tension became the subtext of a lot of the movie, but not so much the plot.
Mm.
Would you guys agree? Like, it was definitely, there was this feeling of Korean pride and tension between what we'd have come to find out is Japan and Korea that definitely gets referenced throughout, and we start the film with it.
right. And like I don't know if you guys know this, and like I don't want to like excuse me, like like explain it here. Um, you guys probably know that relations between Korea and Japan have always been extremely tenuous.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
I didn't even realize until looking at a map of it that Japan is very close to Korea. It almost extends almost like right up to it, right?
Mhm.
And I think we're gonna get into it, but there was a specifically really bad period of warring in like the late
Yeah.
1500s, which is almost
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
certainly what is referenced in this, movie once I get into it. Um,
Yeah.
but things were bad up until World War II, and you guys
Yep.
might know a little conflict known as the Korean War, which was
Yeah.
also bad. So there
Yeah.
there is like a lot of reasons for your average Korean person to have a lot of animosity towards the Japanese. I think I would say that things have cooled recently, as Exhuma kind of shows, but that there is this historical precedence of extreme conflict. So
Yeah, and once we like kind of get to it in like the second part of the movie
Yeah.
that we talk about,
Yeah.
I have like the exact like everything to kind of
Yeah.
bring that
oh,
Okay,
context.
great.
great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just spitballing here. Okay, great that you
No,
have the
you're good.
actual everything. All right, cool. Nice.
All right, so let's keep on going. The family's patriarch, Park Ji Young,
Mm.
entrusts them to relocate the grave to appease the ancestor, his grandfather. Hua-rim enlists colleagues, Feng Shu, Master Kim Sang Dyuk, and a
Mm.
mortician, Young-gun, with a promise of huge payday, especially Sang Dyuk, who's in need of money to pay his daughter's wedding.
I- I'll just go out and say, I really like all these characters for different reasons.
Mhm.
I'd say that there is a special narrative preference for Seong Duk. If that's
Mhm.
his name, pronouncing. Oh boy, this is this is gonna be rough. This is gonna be a rough
Yeah.
one. I can tell. Who is the Geo? What's his
The
designation? A Geo look?
Geomancer?
A
Yeah.
Or-
Geomancer.
Yeah.
I thought they were making some oblique reference to like geocaching, which I
Yeah.
guess I don't know, maybe like
Mhm.
a very fun pastime. But he's a geomancer. Yeah, I would say special narrative preference is given to him. I sort of identify him as the main character of this story.
Mhm.
I would argue, in a lot of ways. I don't know how you guys feel about that, or how you feel about the other characters.
I think it's between him, the geomancer, and Huarem, the shaman.
Mhm,
I think it kind of
mhm.
goes between them as the main characters, with the mortician and uh, her colleague. Uh, oh God, the names are gonna kill us. uh,
So sorry. When you say there's the shaman, and they're not brother and sister. I came to realize the shaman and sorry, what's the name
Bongil
of
and
the
Aquarium?
Bongu and Huarem? Wait, sorry. Huarem is the woman, right?
yes,
Yes,
Oh, okay,
yes. Aquarium
okay.
is the woman.
Sorry. No, because sorry, Bongu is specifically referred to as a shaman, right? So I'm not sure what she are they both shaman?
they're both shaman.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
They're just okay. I would agree that Huarem is the second thing. And yeah, sorry, I was and maybe this is goes to show my own ignorance. I thought that they were brother and sister the entire movie. It's revealed quite a bit later, I would argue, that they don't have that connection. That
Yeah,
they're
it seemed like
from
just
separate.
co-workers, kind of colleagues.
Right.
Yeah,
I
It
think in a
feel
way it's intentional that we
yeah.
like care for them instantly before we find out
yeah,
their actual relationship.
yeah.
I
You
I
because you just
think
know they're close.
Mm,
I think because they're like quote unquote both shaman, they play off of them seeming like they know what each other's thinking instinctually, because they're connected to the, spirit realm and therefore connected to the, motivations and everything that's going on with the other. I think they play into that. They do have a very close
Mhm.
relationship. Yeah.
mm. Now, something that I think is interesting is when we are introduced to both the geomancer and the mortician, they're working with a family and they realize that something's been stolen from the grave or wasn't brought, and the kid ends up like taking something and keeping it. But
Mhm.
I like though how the movie also kind of paints them as like some people believe that they're con men, that they don't actually know what
Mm.
they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. This is kind of sense of and and I said this a little in the beginning because of it, my misunderstanding of the title, but it almost felt like a reality show. Not so much, reality drama, not in that aspect, but reality show because it showed it. The film goes a little bit out of the way to show like the daily lives of the shamans, and then then they go to and then they drive to the gravesite, and that's where you see them start the rituals. Um, and I think it does like a really kind of good job because of what you just said, Ryan. Is it really it makes it feel more real because I do believe in I believe there are cultures that thoroughly believe this, but are looked at did a nice drawing the line between the reality of our world and the film itself.
Mm.
Mm,
I would, I would also argue that these scenes, specifically uh, this early exhumation, which is of course very chill compared to everything else that happens, it is an excellent example of show don't tell the character motivations of
Mm.
not only it's so much easier to say the geomancer and the mortician.
Hmm.
It's Seong Dok and I'm sorry, what's
mm.
the mortician's name?
Young Yoon.
Young
Honestly, I'm
Yoon.
gonna refer to them as the geomancer and mortician.
I think that's
Yes.
okay. I think we can give ourselves that grace. Yeah, like that. I would say the mortician is like the funniest of them. He seems like almost like the most like uh not necessarily like interested in like the whole spirit side of things. I think he's like a bit of a skeptic with it a little bit until obviously he's like, oh, I'm just the mortician. Like I understand that like, these like there is like a spirit realm, but like I'm not in it the way that you other three are into it.
Yeah,
That's the
he wants
impression
the
I got from
payday.
him. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Yes.
most interested in the money. Yeah.
Yeah, so the geomancer specializes in selling burial locations for the wealthy, while the
Mm,
mortician owns a funeral home. So during their first encounter with Ji Young, the geomancer becomes a little bit weary when he insists on cremating the grave, which is located near North Korea. So the geomancer backs out at first, seeing this sinister energy, but Ji Young is able to convince him to still do it by doubling the pay. So we're already getting,
All money.
yeah, more money, more problems.
Yeah,
So
for real. That's pretty much it. If the money wasn't talking, we wouldn't have this film.
We wouldn't
yeah.
have it, no. It's
So,
very yeah.
oh no, you go, Bill. You go.
No, something that's very interesting that's brought up a whole I had to look up a few things to understand what I did. Like I know what feng shui is. You guys understand the general,
Mhm.
sort of understanding of that. That is a Chinese concept. So this is a real this movie is very exploratory, I guess, of all kind of this intersections of Asian cultures and everything, which is very interesting for many reasons. But I had to look up what the word auspicious means
Mhm.
because the geomancer uses that word a few times. It's just like good, like this is like a place that you'd want to I guess sleep forever, like
Yeah, dying. Yeah.
yeah, die
Yeah.
there, yeah, die there. So it's like a good fortuned place, to
Mhm.
be. And so I had to, and that word is used a lot in feng shui as like a place that like is abiding by those principles.
Mm.
So very interesting. But yeah.
And I want to also mention with feng shui that it was introduced to Korea during the Tang Dynasty.
Interesting.
When they were doing a lot of cultural exchanges, that was when the
Mhm.
exchange kind of happened and became a part of Korean culture.
Very
Okay.
interesting. Very interesting.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't really,
So
yeah.
let's keep on going. So Hua Rim convinces them that she could perform a ritual while the grave is dug to avoid the curse. Uh, Ji Young tells them about a famous monk named Jisun, who, in order to, oh God, what is that word that they put? Assuage? Assuage.
Oh, yeah, to
Mhm.
calm down,
Yeah. Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Assuage.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
The
we're learning
grave
a lot
robbers.
of words.
Everyone's
We're
We're learning a
learning
lot
today.
of words in this movie.
We're learning history. We're learning words. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah, assuage.
so in order to assuage the grave robbers, provided the grave location for his grandfather. All right. Well, I'm just going to keep on going. Hua Rim and
Yeah, keep
Bongil
going.
perform the ritual, and the excavation proceeds smoothly. Something that I want to mention that this doesn't mention in the Wikipedia article is that they go there before this ceremony is performed, and that's when the geomancer is like, "Nah, like something's off. Like this is not a good site for a
Mhm.
grave."
Mhm.
Um,
A a foreloaning, yeah, a foreshadow for sure that, oh, okay, that this grave is about to be the focus of, what's up, what is up with this grave site? Why is it cursed? Why is it not feel right?
And there's a lot of imagery that we see with it. Like we see the foxes like looking at them, and he
Yes.
mentions he's like, "Fox is a bad
Bad luck.
sign."
Mm-hmm.
Now, no, two things. First of all, I had to look up why foxes were considered a bad sign. It like ties back to like some things that like is even like a part of our culture where like foxes are like viewed as like mischievous and like agents of like mischievous or like weird forces or anything. I gotta give this movie one ding. I gotta give this movie one ding.
Mm.
You guys know what I'm gonna say? You guys know what I'm gonna say about the foxes?
No.
CGI.
They just didn't look very good.
Oh,
They
yeah,
just
they looked
didn't look
fake.
great. They looked very
Mm-hmm.
otherworldly, which I mean, it's like, oh yeah, I guess things that are
Yeah.
Yeah,
CGI would look otherworldly, but
and
uh
I'll mention here, well, since you bring it up, Bill, that the budget of this movie was $1 million.
okay, okay. Those foxes I take it all back! I take it all back! The foxes look great. 1 million American? 1
1
million
million
USD?
American.
Okay,
Mhm.
this movie looked fantastic for $1 million.
Mhm.
We're gonna get into it later, but some of the stuff with the fire is
Yeah.
just what I'll say.
Yeah.
That's very, 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 very impressive for $1 million. Are you sure? Are you sure?
I'm sure. I
Really?
looked it up. I looked it up and like double checked. A mil.
Okay, it
Wow.
looks like
I
10
did the
mil.
conversion.
It looks like 10 mil. It looks like 10 mil at least. Wow. Okay, it looks great. Wow. Okay, that's the one thing I'll say. That is like the
And
one
I
thing.
noticed that as soon like in the movie too. I was like, okay, like I'll accept it. Like it's not bad enough that it's like offensive or anything. And then
Yeah,
I saw the
yes.
budget. I was like, what?
Okay. Yeah, I'm a believer. I'm like friggin' get Smash Mouth in here. Yeah, I
Yeah.
friggin' yeah. Wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Complete rescinded with $1 million budget. That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah. Who knew that they hired Swiper for this movie? Like,
Hmm, Who would have thought $1 million?
Yeah.
God damn. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
it
They
looked pretty
they made,
good.
they made that
Mhm.
dollar stretch. They made that dollar stretch. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's
Yeah.
really cool that they spent 20% of the CGI on on these foxes.
Yeah, that was most of the budget. That was most of the budget. I wanted that suck.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that suck? Just
Oh
get real
my gosh.
foxes. Probably can't do that
Yeah.
though. I don't know. It's probably some like
I
foxes are like a
I feel
protected
like it
animal.
depends. It depends on like if they're I get not trainable, but you know what I mean? Like will they listen to a trainer
Yeah,
on like set?
can you train a fox? I mean, they're kind of dog-like. I don't know if you can actually fully train on it. Oh,
You could probably train any animal with
Yeah.
conditioning.
okay,
Any
okay.
animal.
All right.
Yeah.
In our hyper cut of Exhuma, we with our
Yeah.
trained foxes to improve
Yeah.
exactly like 2 or 3 like 30-second sequences. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously
So
though,
anyway, so they
incredible dolly stretch. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Oh, my dog
Oh,
just came in.
Oh, that just
I
scared the
was
shit out of me, Nick.
I was
That
like,
just
"Oh my
scared the
god."
shit out of me,
You
Nick.
see,
I thought that was in
my
my house, and like I was like, Nick. Okay.
The
Okay.
Japanese No, I'm kidding.
No, they're right there. You're gonna get Exhuma'd. You're gonna get
oh man,
Exhuma'd.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
zooming.
Okay. Okay.
So anyway, like we said, it goes smooth. Like the ritual goes without like any hitch. It goes perfectly well. And then one of the grave diggers sees a snake and says, "You know what? I'm gonna kill it." Yeah.
I'm gonna hit it. I'm gonna hit it with a hammer
Uh-huh.
because I'm angry. Oh,
I have two questions about this sequence. I have a statement and a question. My statement, I don't know if you guys know this. I hate snakes. I really have an issue with snakes. I really have an issue. It's like a deep-seated fear of mine. I've never been able to get over it. There's other fears that I've had that I've been able to get over. I have a natural dislike of snakes, and apparently, I've heard that's an Irish thing. I don't know. Maybe that's part of my thing. Like I remember my
I also
grandma
hate
who's
snakes.
okay, really? Okay. My grandma who's Irish, I watched Indiana Jones with her, and she actually had to leave the room when it
wow,
was the snake sequence in that,
Yeah.
wow.
Well,
So
Ireland like famously got the snakes away.
so that's maybe it's a thing. See, a little bit of my culture. Why not? Why might not? Right? Anyway, I would have killed that snake too. I would have been suffering the way that that guy did. I don't blame him, but the reveal, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. How do you
Yeah.
guys feel about that?
But you know the meme from Glee where it's Jane Lynch and she's like, "I'm gonna create an environment that is so toxic."
Yes, yes,
Bro,
yes,
bro
yes.
said in that moment, "I'm gonna create a grave site that is so
It's so
toxic."
toxic. Uh-huh. And such a selfish thing too. He was just mad. He was not having a good day, and like he angry. I think it was because at this point it was raining, I believe, or whatever.
Right after,
Yeah,
as
right
soon as he
afterwards,
does it.
frustrating. Yeah, yeah, and just not going well, and really sets off like a foreboding, like oh shit,
Hmm.
oh
Like
shit, I
now we're
done
in
this.
it.
Uh-huh.
But of course, the snake is not really a snake at all.
Hmm.
I mean, it's okay. I don't know any context of like human animal stuff in Korean folklore. They never really get into it. Um, it is like a snake with the head of a woman, right?
Hmm.
I don't know what the hell's going on there. I don't know what that is like. A thing other than it being really creepy, and I don't like it. And kill it immediately, please. So yeah, um, yeah. So
So
no.
what I want to mention is that this like specific folklore is something in both Korean and like Japanese folklore. A
Mm,
human head on a snake. And they both
okay.
kind of represent a similar thing. So in Korean folklore, it has, of course, a supernatural connotation, but it's linked to a frightening, mysterious entity. The concept of shapeshifting or cursed spirits taking on a human snake hybrid form is kind of like this extrapolation of like haunting or like spirits that want revenge, which look at what happens in this movie.
Mm,
Mm.
the spirit wants revenge.
Yeah.
I believe the grandfather. I believe they realize. Yeah, yeah. It's like the
Mhm.
grandfather's ghost who wants revenge on his family.
Yeah, and Japanese folklore, same thing. It's very supernatural. But in this case, instead of being like a frightening element and being revenge, this one wants to attack. Like it lures you in, and then that's when it jumps and attacks
Mm,
you.
okay.
So I
Which
think you
also
could see both sides of it because it's like as soon as we see the snake, it like does like a scream right before it's
yeah,
smashed. So,
yeah.
was it more of the Japanese folklore? Was it more of the Korean?
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be
Okay,
a mix of
interesting.
both.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, like we said, it's the head of the snake is severed, which triggers rain and a very bad omen. Uh,
Mm.
the mortician insists on cremating the coffin once the rain stops, so they store it at a nearby ward. The local custodian, hearing rumors of a treasure in the tomb, of course,
Of
Oh
course.
greedily
yeah.
opens the coffin and thus accidentally releases the vengeful entity inside, Ji Young's grandfather.
Mm.
Now,
Great sequence.
great
Yeah.
sequence. Jihan specifically. Okay. The meta commentary that I'd like to not only bring to people that may not have seen this movie and you should really watch this movie, like if you haven't seen it before, and the thing I kind of want to get straight with you guys to make sure I understand this, Jian and specifically Jian's uh great aunt, I believe, is this other woman, are trying to protect the legacy of Jian, his father, and the brother of the aunt, right? Or maybe it's just I guess it would just be Jian's aunt then, right? Um, right? They're trying to protect the legacy because he was a traitor.
Yes.
He was a Korean traitor to the Japanese.
Yes. So he
That's
was
Yes.
what
a Japanese
Yes. Yes.
loyalist during when they had occupation in Korea.
got it.
Which is around World War II, the World War
Yep.
II Korean War tension. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so all this because Gian's like, "Oh, don't open the grave, don't open the grave." And it's not because of any spiritual misgivings he has. It's because very distinctly he's like, "Oh, like you're not allowed to open the grave." And they're like, "Oh, well, we wouldn't do that anyway." It's because he's trying to make it so that nobody it gets revealed that he is like a traitor and like buried with Japanese regalia or anything, or anything that would be compromising. But of course, then there's the photo that the aunt has that kind of gives it away.
Yeah, and she was
Okay,
very against it.
Mhm.
She was very against the grave even moving. She did not want anything to do with it because like you said, Bill, she knew and she didn't want that to get out.
right, because it's dishonorable to their family.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So the entity ends up killing both Ji Young's parents and Ji Young himself. Very
Mhm.
cool, like moments. It does a great job of blending when we should see something and when it's going to cut to being off screen.
Well, let me ask you something. That was so it's Gion's grandfather. Because
Yes,
Gion's father is the one that gets killed in the
Is killed.
sequence.
yes,
Yes.
in the wheelchair.
Right. And then that is his sister, I'm assuming, that's looking after their father, right? The dancing sequence.
No,
Sorry,
that's the wife.
the wife of Gion.
No, wife of his that's his parents.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, because I got the impression that she was a lot younger than the guy in the wheelchair. But okay. No.
No, I think she just looks young.
Oh, okay. For sure, for sure. I was struggling to understand these relationships a little bit, other than his a vengeful ancestor that was like, "Oh, I'm not happy with how my family turned out." Okay, guys, kind of extreme to be like, "I'm just gonna kill you guys," like that's a
Yeah.
little much. It's a little much.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, and I think at this point, believe it's chapter 3 because that's when I have my notes that like things really, okay, now it feels like okay, there's shit happening, shit's starting to hit the
Mhm.
fan, the haunting is happening, deaths are happening, um, kind of brutal deaths too,
Oh, for sure.
right,
Yeah.
if we're talking paranormal deaths, it's pretty haunting with the possessions and the puking that happens and the forced suicide.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
it suddenly becomes clear like what's happening because we have a phone call during one of these attacks, which I thought was pretty. We have the scene where I believe it's
It's the
I forget who it is.
geomancer calling the to Ji
Yeah.
Young.
Yes, and yeah. So the geomancer's calling Jiyoung. Meanwhile, Jiyeon hears a geomancer at the door,
Mhm.
which I thought was wow. That was pretty well played. Of like who again like you deciding you figuring it out as the characters are figuring it out because like who is trusting, and then it finally clicks like don't let them in,
Yeah.
and then you're like oh okay well but yeah, and so it suddenly becomes clear like okay, phone call is this point of possession.
Well,
Mhm.
well, to like I don't know, that sequence is great, by the way. Did you guys figure out, because the thing is that how it's presented is that he gets a phone call first. So that's what we're
Mm,
supposed to trust. And
Yeah.
then the geomancer at the door, which of course is later found out to be the real geomancer.
yeah.
Um so the one on the phone is his grandfather trying to trick him. Did you guys figure it out before it happened? I figured it out like 2 or 3 seconds right before. Like it's like, oh, let your grandfather in with the window.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
I was
I
gonna say
figured it
as
out like
soon
a
as
few
the window was
seconds.
mentioned.
Yeah, I figured it out like a few seconds. I was like, no, like
Yeah.
and like he doesn't know. He doesn't know. So like, yeah,
No.
um, I like. How did you guys like the effects of the ghost, or how ghosts are presented in this world?
It was a very interesting take on it, I thought. Like I liked
Yeah.
how it was kind of presented, like almost like it was the wind, and then
Yeah.
like we would hear like the whisper or like the voice calling out to them,
Yeah.
right? Kind of like with the when
Mhm.
Ji Young's father was the first to go. How it's kind of
Yeah.
like whispering to him, like, my son, let me in.
Mhm.
I also thought it was very interesting. Two kind of tropic things. I don't know if it was intentional, but I think it was pretty intentional that it's like you have to let them in, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels very
You have
like
to make
vampiric.
Right.
yes.
And
Yes.
that you can only seem to see them in reflections. That seemed to have been a big thing. If you guys
Yeah.
can remember the various
Oh,
sequences of that,
yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think
right?
we see him with the father, Ji Young's father, we see him in like the glass. And
Mhm.
then we see a reflection at Ji Young's apartment or the hotel that Ji Young is
Win
staying at in Korea.
yeah,
Right.
with the window.
I I gotta say the one part that I was kind of like the only kill of this whole sequence that like I was like, oh, like a bit of an eye roll was the dancing one. You know,
Mm.
I was like, okay, because you see in the reflection that the person that is
Mm.
faux dancing is
Mhm.
the thing, and I was like, okay, like you can kill her, like like it's like I don't know, you just
Yeah.
get it over with, like
Yeah, it
Very
feels
like
artistic for a movie that, like, yes, it's very beautiful, very well made. Isn't that sort of artsy movie?
right.
yes, I agree. Yeah, it was very much like it was a oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, the horror movie that doesn't old version, a new version that takes place at the Dance Academy. Why am I blanking on the
Oh,
title?
Suspiria.
Oh,
Yeah,
Suspiria.
it's very Suspiria-esque, where it's like, oh, okay, it's kind of like Suspiria mixed with Black Swan with the intensity of it. Um,
Mm, I
but
was
I can
gonna
agree.
say,
It doesn't
yeah.
fit. It almost doesn't fit.
But again, the movie up to this point has been so good. It's like she's dancing, whatever. Like,
Yeah, it's believable up to that point. It's like, oh, now it's gonna happen. Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, I think that goes back to they blend the outside of work hours part of these characters and so well, even those who die. Um,
mm,
so it really
Mm,
gave a good human element to them.
and something that I want to mention is how the curse they say really only affects the first male born of like the line. So like Ji Young was
Mhm.
afflicted by it. His
Mhm.
father was afflicted by it, and now his son, the baby, is being afflicted by it. If there was if a girl was born, she wouldn't have been afflicted by the curse. And if you notice, the most brutal deaths are by the men in the family.
I
Mm.
okay, okay. I yes. Okay. Obviously, the baby death is. I'm like, okay. I knew meta that they probably weren't going to go there, right?
Mm,
It sort of seemed like how it was played up is that like by that point they knew the way to get rid of him forever
Mm.
was to burn the body and everything. And so when he's like well, like magic this baby to death, like and everything, I was kind of not believing it. I'm like, no, like they're gonna burn you in time, and oh, as a bonus
Mhm.
reward, you're getting burned when it's raining. You're getting cremated when it's raining, which is bad. Apparently, you don't get to go to the afterlife or something. Or
Oh yeah,
like,
they
Mm.
said screw his afterlife. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
blood's gotta go. Like
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, if that's true, like, I hope none of my relatives freaking got cremated on a non-auspicious day. So
Mhm. And one
Yeah.
last thing that I want to mention before we move on now to chapter 4 is that before Ji Young dies, he says something. He says like the Japanese saying, right?
Mm. A fox
Do
and
you guys
a
have the exact yes, you have it, Nick?
oh, the no, I don't. But wait. If I think it's the fox has severed the wolf. Is that the other animal?
Yes.
The
It's
fox
yeah,
has
something close
severed
to that.
the throat of the wolf. I think is the line.
oh, is it a tiger?
Or tiger. It is.
Tiger,
Yes.
right?
Tiger.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Has he broken the back, severed the back? What is it, Ryan? I do need this.
I let me see. I gotta make sure because I don't want to like misquote this, but they don't have it on the thing that I'm reading. So let me see.
Well, I remember tiger very specifically because I remember they make reference that it's like, oh, like our, beautiful nation of Korea, it often like is depicted as looking like a tiger. And I was like, really? Like I'm like looking at it, like I'm like like I'm trying to puzzle piece it together. I'm like, I don't see a tiger anywhere here. Like, I don't know. Or like I'm like Japan definitely doesn't look like a fox, so I don't know. But the only real country shape is Italy in the boot. But
That
you find anything? Find
Yeah.
anything?
it gave me the wrong
Um,
quote when I try to look it up.
Oh, okay.
It's giving me the tiger dies and leaves its skin, a man dies and leaves his name, but that is not what I'm.
No.
I'm looking up.
Hey, that goes hard. That's a hard
That
ass
is true.
quote. That's a hard ass quote, but I don't think that's quite. I believe it's something to the effect of the fox is severed. The fox has broken the back of the tiger, severed the back of the tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This idea that something much smaller has vanquished a powerful foe.
Mhm. So I'm gonna keep on reading, but I'm gonna try to find it and figure it out. Uh, so let's keep going. We are in chapter 4 now. So months later, uh, the mortician informs the geomancer about a grave digger who becomes disturbed after the killing of the snake. And we see like he's kind of all over the place. He's pretty messed up. Um,
Mm.
and he ends up going back to the grave site, the geomancer, and discovers the head of the snake along with a second burial. And it is a 7-foot long standing coffin.
Hmm.
Like my jaw was dropped when like that happened. I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah. Yeah. That's where like, oh, it's something's not right. It's also a plot twist that, oh, there's another grave.
Right.
Yeah, and the fact that it's so massive,
Yeah.
it's definitely like very shocking when this discovery is made. And they even say like, "Holy crap, this is a massive grave."
Yeah.
And then I love how the
Physical
first thought for
component.
someone is like, "Should we open it?" Like, and they're like, "No." Like,
No. Uh, has anything that's happened up to this point suggested that we should open a grave?
Yeah,
No.
is it implied that that's where the snake came from? You guys think like the snake like slivered out of the grave or something, or was just like hanging out there or something? That was kind of my first tip off that there was something else in the grave site when that
mm.
happens.
Well,
I
that's
don't
kind of
know.
why I mentioned before how both the snake with like the head of a woman is both in Japanese and Korean folklore. So you could kind of see it
Mm,
as it was from the
mm.
Japanese grave, or
Whoa. Very
Mhm.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
think that could be something within the movie itself. Like for Korean audiences, they would be like, "Oh, that's a bad sign of a vengeful spirit," but then now it has the double meaning of actually this could have been for our 7-foot grave all along.
That's
Which
crazy.
also, I found the quote. It is the
It,
fox cuts the tiger's waist.
I found out the
Oh.
significance of that quote.
Okay.
Have you guys right? So I didn't put this together. So it in the movie we hear a lot about the coordinates of this grave, right? It kind of gets repeated a
Yes.
lot.
Mhm.
Somebody put in those coordinates to Google Maps,
Whoa.
and it okay. So keep in mind, Fox cut off the tiger's waist. Korea as a country is shaped like a tiger. The 38.3417, 128.3289 is the actual tiger's waist of the tiger imagery overlaid with Korean's border and turns out to be near the 38th parallel, which was the border between North and South Korea before the Korean War.
Crazy. Wow.
Like we
Definitely
said, there's a
cultural.
lot of history with this movie. There's a lot of
Yeah.
historical context.
Yes. Yeah, and I will say, as we get into it, because now it's gonna get more and more relevant with the stuff that we share. Full disclosure for just all of us, like we
Mm.
have no opinion of either country of who deserved which, the reparations between which countries. Um, but we are just kind of going off the facts that we could turn up. Um, because a lot of this is one country thinking they are deserving of something that they haven't gotten yet. Right. If we're talking vaguely about the tension between Japan and Korea, it's very much like reparations for things that have happened in the past that one or the other believes has not been filled.
Yeah, it feels very dangerous to weigh in on this. Of course I will. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, no. Yeah. With stuff like this, it's like it's so ancient, as we'll come to find out, that it's literally like it's so heavily contested after years and years and years and years and years. Which is something that they're pretty earnest in this film about. Like, there's a reason that this grave uncovers something pretty ancient. It is something pretty ancient. So
Yeah, and let's get into that. So,
Yeah.
he enlists Huarim, Bongil, and the mortician to dispose of the coffin. The four excavate it and rest it at a temple where Huarim learns about Jisun, who turns out to be a powerful Japanese shaman named Murayama Junji, who has the moniker of the Fox. So we're seeing more of the imagery, the connection between the animals, and now the saying's starting to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Now, this was kind of a misdirect for me because they had this creepy photo of this creepy guy, and he's like, "Arr," kind of like a thing. How deep does that go? This guy with the like this fox name. How deep does this go? Because obviously he instructed, um, the father to get, or grandfather, depending on who we're talking about, to get buried on top of this other spirit, but he was obviously aware that something else was there.
Yeah, he did it as a
Right.
way to protect from the other thing that they'll uncover that and be like, all right, we're good.
Right. Not knowing, who would ever
Yeah.
exhume it, not knowing. Got it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that night, Bongil witnesses a ghoul killing the temple priest and the local pig farmer along with his pigs. Huarim and Bongil find the coffin ripped from the inside, and Huarim is ambushed by the ghoul, who is revealed to be a samurai. So now like we said, we've been talking ancient. We're talking late 1500s, early 1600s.
Yeah. Right. Yes, exactly. In direct reference now, bringing us to the stage of this is the tension in the 1500s, the war that happened between Korea and Japan. That's it. That's what's bringing us here. That is the cultural history that we're going to be referencing to.
Mm-hmm. So a little bit about that. So during the late 16th century in Japan, they were under rule by Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and they attempted to invade Korea between 1592 to 1598, which became known as the Imjin War. The
The
invasion
what?
failed. Imjin, Imjin. Imjin.
Okay. Just clearing that up for anyone.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Woo. Okay.
The invasion failed, which they mention in the movie, and then we'll talk about what they did because of that. But that was the start of this huge rivalry between the two nations.
I read some insane historical context for this, and once again, not necessarily saying who's right or who's wrong, but that that period of warring time, like in the late 1500s, there was a monument built near Kyoto that like had something like 30,000 Korean remains there, as like more or less like a militaristic trophy, kind of like as like a thing. So that kind of tells you exactly sort of how tense things were at that time, and why this samurai is obviously might feel he has unfinished business. So
Yeah, I agree. Let's keep on going. So Bongil gets injured and possessed, and the others witness the ghoul turn into a ball of fire flying back to the mountains. So, another thing that I want to mention is that ball of fire is another word would be like a will-o-wisp. That is a part of Japanese folklore as well. So it's
Oh.
known as an I'm gonna butcher. I'm so sorry to any Japanese
You're good.
listeners. Onibi, Onibi, which is in the translation is demon fire.
Right.
So they are a spirit born from corpses of humans and animals, and they are said to be resentful, that have then taken the form of fire.
Straight
Yeah,
up.
so checks out.
Straight up, this samurai is also what is known as an oni, right? They make that pretty explicit.
Yeah.
And like an oni specifically is a vengeful spirit, right?
Yeah.
As far as you understand. Something that I want to talk about, I was like, okay, when he first like changes into like the will-o-wisp fire form, obviously we can talk a little bit more about, you know, the stuff leading up to that. And I thought that reveal was all great. Um, I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, you know,
Mhm.
and then I'm like, that is like when it like truly kicks into high gear that it's like, no, you're not dealing with like a reanimated corpse. You're like dealing with like something that's truly like supernatural. So,
Yeah.
it's very mesmerizing. It's very beautiful. I would say. So,
Yeah, there's a true climax here that I feel like as a watcher you've been waiting for, and it almost like it's supernatural. It seems supernatural and sci-fi, but it works well. It's not like breaking of the reality of the situation. It's just and to hear the symbolism, it really makes sense that like this big ball of fire is this demon, and it's the Onibi, as you said. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just well done. I think that's where about 60% of the profit, the budget probably went to, because like I imagine to film that required
It looks
some.
incredible.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it did work. It looked really good, really well.
And something else that I love about this part is now we just saw a main character get really badly injured where we don't know if he survived it. So that just upped the stakes instantly right there. Like, oh, this is a real threat that we have now.
Mm, yeah.
Whereas the other one, we were a little fearful, but it was more so attacking, like we said, the wealthy family instead of our main four, our core four. But now we just saw someone get almost murked, which makes us like, oh, something big could happen. Someone could die.
Mm, yeah, yeah,
It's
pretty
very, yeah.
grotesque too, in a way that the almost him almost dying.
There's something that's kind of interesting, and I know we like, you know, sort of glossed over just like the reveal of like the shaman like going down and witnessing, you know, somebody getting quite literally beheaded, like, you know, like down in like the livestock like area, like, and everything. And then the woman shaman tries a bit of trickery when she's coming face to face with the Oni. And I thought that was kind of interesting because I I didn't quite understand, you know, and like I think it plays upon that we don't quite understand what we're dealing with at that point, but she recognizes that it is like a truly spiritual manifestation, and that, like, you know, it is not entirely aware of what's going on. Right. It's like it knows that it's like, okay, like I am a Japanese samurai, honor code bounded. I do not like Koreans. Like, you know, I killed a lot of them. I will kill more. Um, and also like I am seemingly back from you know, a period of time that was a long time ago. And
Yeah.
when sort of like she is like in the little shed, like looking at everything and like, oh my god, like, you know, the the whatever was in that huge sarcophagus escaped. And then it's sort of, I think it's such a great shot when it's outside, and
Yes.
it's so good, so good.
And you
Mwah.
see how massive it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
I think it's like 8-9 feet tall. It's huge.
Definitely.
It's supernaturally huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love how instantly like she knows this is a threat. It may not know exactly where it is right now, what's happening, but this is a
Mhm.
threat. Like I need to protect myself.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I forget if this line is before or after the fireball in the sky. I want to say after, but we get another, and it's if we're it's a rather prejudiced line because they say, "Oh, Japanese ghosts are more violent." I forget. There's something. I think there's something more specific that they say, but
Mm.
they essentially say, "Oh, it's Japanese ghosts. That means it's ruthless or something." And
Mhm.
that really just kind of like brings to what you were saying, Brian. Like it doesn't know what it's doing here, and now based on the character's beliefs, it's going to be ruthless and it's not it just wants to kill.
Mhm. And we see that with instantly when Bongil is looking at like the pigs and seeing where the other character that's at the temple with them when they're murked. It's not like
Hmm.
something happened to them or anything like that. No, they were murked.
Yeah.
And I do want to mention that there is a lot of Japanese folklore does depict spirits as very vengeful,
Mm.
even within Japanese mythology itself.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
so there's like a few examples of it, uh, but we don't have to get into that because that's just there's a lot of folklore that we could go into with that, and we could think of movies like The Grudge, you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Mm.
Right.
or like
Or
The Ring. Like
The
yeah, I
ring
was
with
gonna
there's
say
Ringu.
Ringu.
Yeah.
Yeah, the house. Or is it called
yep,
House? Did you
House
ever see that?
from
House.
House.
'77.
Yeah.
Fun movie. That's fun. I did watch a Japanese movie recently that we won't like divulge like fully into, but it was called, and I quote, "Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell."
Hey, buddy. Don't knock it till you try it, please. Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's meant to pay homage to Evil Dead.
Okay.
It
Okay.
Hey, that sounds
100%
Good
good.
start.
does. It took like
Oh,
over 30 to 40 years to make.
What?
Yep.
Somebody's labor of
And
love.
I had so much fun watching this movie. I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5.
what did you give Evil Dead?
Oh, that's 5 stars.
Yeah, I know you love that movie.
Yeah, Evil Dead's great. That's a 5-star movie. And for those who don't know, like a movie doesn't have to be perfect to get a 5-star rating from me.
Hmm.
I'm very I don't think that anything is perfect and that a movie shouldn't be knocked for that. That's just my philosophy with that. But let's keep
Yeah.
on going.
Let's
Huaram
keep on going. Yeah.
investigates the ghoul's origin through the possessed Bongil with two of her friends. The geomancer returns to the grave and finds the samurai dormant on the coordinates written on the grandfather's tombstone. So, like you mentioned before, Nick, these coordinates are being brought up again. It is revealed that during Japanese occupation of Korea, the Imperial Japan, what we talked about before, 1592 to 1598, that invasion, ordered their shamans to put multiple large iron spiritual spikes throughout the country to disrupt the country's life force so they could easily rule over the occupied Korea. He discovers that the supposed grave robbers were Korean patriots attempting to unearth and remove these spiritual spikes in Korea. And the samurai ghoul is actually the guardian spirit that was tasked by Jisun to protect one of the spikes. Big information dump. Things that we've heard in part one about grave robbers that we really never
Yeah.
like hear much about. And uh you know why the gravesite is so like cursed, why they feel such a presence there that there's something wrong right here, something's off.
Mhm.
now we learn that there's a spike in the country, a spiritual spike in the country.
It's messing up the chakra, man.
It is.
Very interesting. Yeah, I kind of like the historical context of that, sort of mentioning these guys who set out to, uh, undo these spikes, literally, like the thing, and that, in the shack of the shrine next to, sort of we kick off this whole thing. It's like, oh yeah, like there was these grave robbers here. They had these tools, and they kind of piece together that it's like, well, these aren't grave robbing tools. These were like built for a specific purpose, and it's kind of nice that they get a little exoneration too. They
Yeah.
just couldn't quite finish the job.
No, and I mean, bro's 7 foot, like built,
Yeah,
like
bro's built. No, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
been able to either.
like get him on the Lakers. Like he needs to be playing
Yeah,
basketball.
bro's playing on the wrong team. Bro could do anything he wants.
He needs to help LeBron. Like
That man's an Olympian.
yeah, star center on any team. It's gonna.
Oh my god. So our
It's
geomancer, Huarim, and the mortician devise a plan to unearth the relic when the creature rises after midnight. Huarim will distract the samurai while the others dig the grave. Sorry. A vision reveals the fox embedding a katana inside a decapitated samurai's body, turning the samurai into a ghoul in Ji Young's grandfather's grave, serving as a cover for the relic.
Mm.
So now we're in the third act. We are getting our plan together of how we're going to defeat this samurai, what we're going to do. And even they're like, listen, we may not survive this, but this is bigger than just a payday or money or anything. Like this needs to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, it's also, might be important to mention at this point, the Huarim not only seems to come from this like school of shaman, she very distinctly had a teacher who is
Mhm.
teaching others, and furthermore, somehow, somehow, like a thing, Horim's grandmother, who may have also been a shaman, like watches over her quite literally.
Yes.
The spiritual presence and strength.
Yes. And we see this when right before the samurai escapes from the grave, she's talking to her grandmother. There's like something like does not feel right about this. Like there's something up. Like, please help me. I need your help right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Essentially praying to the spirits that, praying to her grandma who watches over her to get her under protection. I want to say too, and I meant to say this quite earlier, but the actors, the cast underwent kind of shaman training by observing other shamans in real life. They attended rituals to see how because this is a real culture that exists, and so they need to observe them up front. And I think that shows just with the performances, and I him Goen, who the actress who plays Huarium, was nominated for won Best Actress in a film at the Baksang Arts Awards. I probably butchered that, but I think it shows here because I think it's one of those scenes where like he's able to capture such like vulnerability and desperation and still seriousness within shaman culture. There's not a single point where you look at any of the rituals and think this is ridiculous. I think there's the direction and the acting performances do such a good job at really capturing the authenticity and existence of these rituals.
Yeah, the acting is absolutely incredible in this movie. And there's moments where we don't understand like fully what they're saying, but we could tell from the emotion that they're able to portray.
Yes. Yeah.
Um So to continue on, since we're very close to the end, the geomancer realizes that the samurai himself is the iron spike, and since he is represented fire in feng shui, he must be vanquished by the element of water and wood. The geomancer then uses a wooden pickaxe drenched in his own blood to successfully vanquish the samurai spirit.
Um, one of my favorite sequences in this movie is it's a real kind of like, like Scooby-Doo esque. I don't mean to lessen like the movie, but anything like saying like this whole thing, like it's like, oh, like somebody needs to distract the ghost, while we like
Yes.
go to work and the thing. And Farm does a great job. I think that whole sequence was very good. Like she is acting as if she is this like spiritual tree presence, and this, the samurai, ghost Oni is still like very time displaced. And like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't quite know what's going on, like, like and everything. And so it really works. It like really works to distract him for a little bit. And like, it's like, oh, like why is this tree, speaking to me? And like, why is it pissed at me? Like, like and everything. Um, and that gives them enough time. But I was so stressed for the B team when they're trying so desperately to look for the spike, and they're like, it's not there, it's not there. And then freaking poor geomancer, when literally the Oni will-o-wisps right on top of him. I thought it was gonna like incinerate him or something. Like that was gonna be the end of his story right there,
Yeah.
He's gonna be like, I gave my life, to like help out. Like, sorry guys, like,
Yeah. He's bloody by the end of it. Like we don't
Oh
know if
yeah.
he's gonna survive. Like he's messed up. The last little bit of energy he had in that moment is what he uses to finally defeat the samurai.
Mhm.
And I know we're kind of getting, kind of like towards the end here and everything. He has something at the end. You mentioned it that it's like, oh, like he represents like fire and, fire and metal, fire and steel or something. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
must
that's
be
wood and water.
vanquished by water and wood. Yeah.
water and wood, and I'm kind of like, okay, is this like Pokemon or something? Like, like is there like strong types and weak types and everything? I was very like, okay, we could have used this a little bit before, other than it being very quickly explained in the moment and then instantly used. I'm gonna say it's a little convenient. I'm gonna say it's a little convenient. Um,
Mm,
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
could this
frankly.
be a case of like for us, we're not part of that culture. So like for them, it's like, oh, like this is something that
It
is
could also
known.
be that. It could
Yeah,
also be that.
You know?
I
that's
don't
fair.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know if like, if there's like an equivalency to it. I certainly think of, it's like, okay, yeah, like I mean, obviously water beats fire, right? Like, and everything. Very metal that he's using, and not literal metal like the samurai, that he's using his own blood to be the source of the liquid. Maybe that gives it a little spiritual kick or something, gives it a boost.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, very effective final fight scene here. Interested to
Yeah,
hear how
and
you guys
I
thought about
just
it.
quickly like looked it up to kind of say, uh, and it says that it's very like this is very crucial to feng shui itself. These
Really?
elements,
Mm.
and there's 5 of them. So there's wood, fire, earth, metal, and water.
Okay. So it's referring to the
And
feng shui dynamics.
about all these different elements and how they interact with the energy flow,
Mm,
Interesting.
which
okay.
is yeah. So this could be, like I said, a case of like we're not from South Korea. We don't know like the ins and outs of feng shui that like someone there could be like, oh, like this just makes sense. This doesn't need to be explained. But the movie up to that point did a good job of explaining things to an audience that maybe didn't fully understand what was going on. That for in this moment to be like, oh, wood and water. It's very like, oh, okay, wood and water, get wood and water.
Yeah.
Yeah, regardless of anything aside, yeah, I feel like the blood axe probably does defeat the hateful spirit. Yeah, that seems about right. Like it's like okay, cool.
It's
And also
probably
your own blood. Yeah,
yeah, it's probably like the American equivalent of like an exorcism and using a cross and holy water.
right. Yeah, something like that, or like
South Korea's
salt.
South Korea's equivalent to the crucifix is just a bloody axe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah, the
I'll
Exhuma.
tell you guys the real issue
Ooh,
with this scene, right?
I have something else too, but I'm interested to hear. Yeah.
When they're driving up to the site, I don't know if you guys remember, but they encounter like a closure. The road's closed.
Mm-hmm.
And these people convince
Right.
the people who close the road to let them in because they are weeding. We got a weed. We were weeding in that area, and we just got to be there. We know the road's closed, but listen, them weeds, man, they're gonna take it over. So we got to go, and it works. Not a question, not a single doubt. It's like, oh, all right, let him in.
I love that you mentioned that because there's a huge like this is apparently a very big thing in South Korea about issues between the people and the police
Oh,
and involving
oh,
the media. There's a big disconnect there, which if you watch Memories of Murder, very, very big part of that movie. But the police within South Korea is very scrutinized and the media is all over them. So they cannot make a wrong move anywhere. So I think
mm,
for this instance, it could be something of like we have to just let them through because if they like just try to drive by and we like stop them or something, we could be seen as terrible to the media.
oh, okay.
If only that were true in America. But I digress. But anyway. Okay. Gotta let it slip. Gotta let it slip. Okay.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's very interesting. Totally makes sense.
It does. Thank you
Yeah,
for
there's a
aligning that.
lot
Yeah,
of like historical, and that's something I wouldn't have known going into it. That was
yeah.
after Memories of Murder, like seeing that and then doing more research and be like, oh wow, like there's a lot of history that like we've never learned about.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's
So
very. I think on a U.S. centric perspective, it's so. I think something I thought of as I was like researching all this is just the idea of that like the U.S. isn't an old country; it's a young country, and there are other countries like Korea, like Japan, who have literally been a civilization for hundreds and hundreds of more years than us. Thousands in that actually in that case, right? With dynasties. Um, and so I think by that I get this perspective of that means Korean and Asian films will capture messages and just display images and tackle subjects that are so much more ahead of our time of United States cultural social norms. Um, Yeah, and so and that's something I just like you said Ryan and Bill, like that's not something I thought either going into this film that would come up, and I'm happy it did. It definitely was perspective expanding for me.
mm. So just to finish off, because we only have
Yeah.
one more thing to go through with this movie. The geomancer is very, very injured, but he ends up regaining consciousness at the hospital with everyone else by his bedside. So everyone has survived. Our core four has
Mhm.
survived the movie. A few months later, the group attends the geomancer's daughter's wedding, and that is our ending.
Gotta
Just
say,
got something to say.
Misstep to have all four survive. I really think the Geomancer should have did it. I really think he should have died. And I almost wonder if maybe he did. And his imagining of I mean obviously I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's all a dream, past the thing. I think it would have carried narrative weight to have him pass away to be able to restore. In some ways he sort of feels like the older generation of Koreans, the more 50, 60-year-old sect. And it's we finally done this thing that has been this this pall over kind of my country that I care about. And we've gotten rid of this final spiritual stake, whatever you want to call it. And I've given up my life for that. They allude that he is not doing well necessarily
Mm.
in that kind of throwaway scene where he's advising a building construction, and it shows that he
Yeah.
bleeds randomly from that wound.
Oh yes, from his
Remember
yes.
this?
To his
Yeah.
shirt, yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was to play at something or to give us a clue about his actual fate or something, or that he's gonna die soon. I don't know. I just was I'm like, oh no, yeah, probably he should die.
So
how you guys
I do want to mention something with that too. So as most things within folklore and mythology and all of that, the death of a shaman is seen as very bad luck, and a bad omen. So it could be something where how they did it, where yes, he survived, but he is affected by this. Every single person here is affected by what happened, whether they want to admit it or not. But a lot of South Korean horror, from what I've watched, usually ends and we were joking about before the podcast, the bad ending, you know, where our main character that we've been following passes away, dies in this very emotional scene. That I think it's interesting that this movie chooses that no, we'll have all of our characters survive, but they are very afflicted by this.
Yeah. It's that return to normalcy, but it's not normal for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it would be very an American horror movie to have that sacrifice happen and then have them live on with it. But I think this was kind of going more for we'll let them survive, but they're gonna live with this, and no one's gonna know what they did.
Yes. That's right. There is that aspect, right? I forget what does the news outlet attribute it to? Bear attacks?
Yeah, bear attacks. Yes,
Yeah.
bears, dude.
Mhm.
Which is crazy. Yeah, you're so right. They don't ever get to. There's no glory. No. Okay. Well, they didn't. They weren't in for that anyway. They were in it for the money, but yeah. Which there was none, right? They're just doing it at that point because they're like, oh well, we got to do this. We have
at that point they're this is
spiritual
our
obligation.
country on the on the line here.
You could tell the mortician really doesn't want to fucking do it. Though.
Yeah, the mortician was like, "Do we got it? Do I gotta be there?"
Well,
they
also are fighting for the life of the male shaman, or dominion over his soul, or something. It's he's very close to becoming a avatar of the Oni before he gets sliced in half, and it almost kills him. It's very interesting,
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, he is not the last Airbender.
He's not the last Airbender. Okay. You know what I meant. Anyway. Yeah.
So to kind of wrap it up, so far this is my favorite film of 2024.
Wow.
from all the horror that I've watched and seen, this is my number one so far of the year, surpassing Late Night with the Devil.
Wow.
Mm.
It's a big statement, dude.
Oh, I mean, you know what? I want to bring up. This is relevant to what you just said, but and with it being so good, do you feel that way because it was so fully fleshed out and in part a drama with horror?
I think for me, something that I love in my horror movies is there needs to be a fun vibe to it. Like, that will just
Mm.
always be, like, some sort of, like, line for me of whether I, like, end up really loving a movie or not, and that doesn't mean the movie has to be funny. Like, there just needs to be a sort of fun vibe to it, which I get from, like, the beginning of the movie till, like,
Yeah.
stuff starts to hit the fan, where it
Mhm.
becomes more serious and we're learning more historical context, but it never feels like a drag, like, oh, like someone's gonna get absolutely murked here, and it's not gonna be like, it's not gonna be fun, you know.
Mhm.
So that's something that I love about it. I love the historical context with it. We get so much information from the movie
Yeah.
that, yeah, I felt
Yeah.
like I learned so much and wanted to learn more about the movie and about what was actually happening in South Korea. Whereas, like, if I
Mhm.
watched another movie, I might not be as interested in that.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You're
that's
right. It
why it's
does.
my number one this year so far.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, Late Night with the
Uh,
Devil, very close second, but
I
Have to
truthfully
think
have
of
not seen enough
yeah.
horror movies to use. I mean, probably it's the best. This year, I haven't. It's been a busy year for me in my real life, and so watching horror movies has not been. Movies in general, I've like fell behind in. Um, I recently watched How to Train Your Dragon for the first time. That was a big moment.
Like cinematic masterpiece. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, I can see. I mean, I think it was a really good movie. Um, it felt like it felt to me it felt like a drama fully fleshed out, and I felt like I knew the background of these characters well, I knew the culture of these characters well. Um, and I felt like by the end of the film, I was brought closer to the to all of the whole cast, and ending it with a wedding. I think was a bit of a nice touch. I think it's an easy back to normalcy. Like, oh, it's the wedding he wanted to pay for. But I think it really caps out the togetherness aspect and how close um these characters were in the end. And brought together by something that the rest of the world isn't going to know about. I think it really does it does really a nice job with that. And I couldn't help but think about like Hereditary. Hear me out, because of the
Yes. Yeah.
family drama aspect
mhm.
of the, especially at the beginning. Like I feel like
Mhm.
Hereditary is half of a grieving family story, and then there's a paranormal a paranormal act. And I almost felt like that the same way with this. Is that it was you got to know these characters and really cheer them on. I really enjoyed that. That's something that I didn't expect from going into a horror movie. And I think this has been the most surprising film I've watched in a while.
Yeah. I think this movie really works best as an examination of character study. Um, the thing that really lets me know that this movie is good, other than just my own personal enjoyment of it, is that I think that these four characters could kind of work anywhere. I just think they're good characters
Mm.
in general, without being too tropic, right?
Mhm.
I think we also get to see, through this lens of historical, you know, like events and sort of belief systems that, obviously the three of us might not have the strongest grasp of.
Mm.
We are sort of allowed to understand how their motivations switch from being like one of like personal monetary gain, um to one of selflessness. and how they grow as characters and are presented with challenges to their own, understandings of the spirit world, kind of through those experiences. I think it's a very powerful film. I think it's very good. It is probably the best horror film. I would say it is the best horror film I've seen in 2024. I would I would say so. It is maybe not the best film I've seen in 2024, period. Um, I have a weird pick for that I'll offline with you guys about. Maybe maybe we could talk about it a little more. But yeah, no, strongest of recommends for this film. High tier.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And like I mentioned last time when I kind of brought it up to you on the last podcast, this is the 7th highest grossing film in South Korea's history. So it is, yeah, so it was very well received in South Korea as well.
I understand why.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it shows.
So
It shows.
that is Exhuma. Great
Mhm.
movie. Like we said, highly recommend it. I gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd. I think it's deserving of it. Again, it's not perfect. Nothing has to be perfect to be 5 stars in my personal
Mm.
opinion. But it's on Shudder if you want to watch it. You could get a free trial of 30 days using some different codes. I know creators have a whole bunch of different codes. I think Dead Meat is one. You can get 30 days free. And the year is like $70, $75. Like I use it all the time. Shudder. It's great.
Shutter, please sponsor our channel,
Oh.
and and maybe we could get some of those codes for ourselves.
Yes.
Enter code 3strangers, the 3strangers, all lowercase, for no
yeah.
money off.
Please, please. I watch so much on there. I watch Joe Bob. Like I watch it all.
Wow. You're outing yourself. The cracks are showing, buddy.
Yeah. But yeah, that is this week's episode. I'm not gonna say what next week's is gonna be on this episode. It'll be a little bit of a surprise. I have a few in mind that we could choose from, but there's one that I would love for you guys to watch and to hear your opinions on.
Okay.
So that will be a little surprise. But for now, thank you, Skippy, for editing and doing all of that. Thank you, Nick and Bill, for being in here. Do you have any final words for this episode?
I think we should continue in our 5-word review. I really enjoyed with Moon Soccer. I said, "Moon Man, you suck." Bye. I think for this one, I want to say Fox and Tiger. Fox and Tiger, good movie. No, I'll say Fox and Tiger. Well done.
Ooh,
Oh.
that's
Oh, you
good.
guys. I don't want to put you guys on the spot. But
Mine is going to be shamans are geniuses for sure.
okay, cool. What about you, Nick?
The tiger came and ate.
He said the before Tiger Bill.
Oh shit!
The
No, Tiger, you said the.
The tiger came and ate.
Tiger served. The tiger
Mm.
served. Okay.
Yeah.
Bill thought Nick became a caveman for a second. Tiger came and ate.
I was like, yeah, no, that's how I literally thought. Maybe just like put it out or something. I was like, oh, dude, it was just 4, man. Dude, seriously, bro.
Yeah,
Okay.
I really start this episode not knowing what Exhum means, and then end it with not being able to count to 5.
Dude, the brain rot is clearly too deep. You clearly have some spiritual stakes on your chakras, buddy.
Oh no.
Yeah, we'll Exhuma you. No problem.
Yeah.
I promise we will
Kid.
Exhuma you.
Get ready to be
Oh my
exhumed.
God.
You definitely got Exhuma. Yeah, okay, yeah. How much better would this movie have been if if the Geomancer, right before striking the Oni with the axe, said, "You just got exhumed. You're about to get exhumed." He's right
I think
behind
it's, I thought you
He's
were gonna go like it's exuberant time. So
It's
like it's
exhumed
morbid time.
It's you just got exhumed. $1 million budget. $1 million budget around.
Yeah. And then of course Morbius
got
shows
exhumed.
up.
Yes, and then it turns out that was Hughes actually behind everything the whole time. There's a third climax.
Yeah.
This movie is now 3.5 hours long.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my god. So thank you for watching. Who would have thought talking about Exhuma, South Korean film, it would have led back to Morbius, but everything leads back to Morbius.
Powerful. I'd like to know what you gave that on your letterbox, Ryan.
Oh god, I don't think I had it when it came out. That's probably a 1.5. Like
I give it a 1. Half is like truly like unwatchable. Which is
Yeah.
close. It's close.
I was just saying it
Admittedly,
toes the line.
definitely toes the line.
Oh my gosh. So again, thank you everyone for watching. Be sure to tune in next time. But remember, it's Morbin time. See you everyone.